Hello and welcome to the Armenian News Network Groong. I'm Asbed Bedrossian. Today is November 9, 2023. In this Conversations on Groong episode, we're following up on the aftermath of the 99-year lease deal that the Armenian Patriarch of Jerusalem had signed. We did a show about this back in June, 4 months ago. You can check out episode 261. Last week, the Patriarch publicly rescinded the lease deal, following which the Israeli company took actions to violently claim the section of the Armenian quarters known as Goveru Bardez, Cow's Garden. So today, we are joined by Hagop Djernazian, who is an activist and lives in Jerusalem. He studies international relations and Middle East studies at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Also, we have with us Setrag Balian, who is a Jerusalem Armenian activist. Both of them are organizers of the Save the ARQ movement set up for the defense of the Armenian quarters in Jerusalem. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Hello, thank you for having us, Asbed.
Thank you. So last week, Patriarch Manukyan publicly rescinded the lease agreement. He published the Patriarchate's letter to Xana Gardens Limited that the lease deal was no longer going forward. The next day, Danny Rothman, the owner of Xana Gardens Limited, the leasing company, showed up with over a dozen armed Israeli settlers and bulldozers and tried to take down the walls around Goveru Bardez. Hagop and Setrag, I understand both of you were on site and prevented these people from demolishing Goveru Bardez. Tell us what happened.
Okay, so right after Danny Rothman and his partner George Warwar received the letter, they started using intimidation tactics to force the Patriarchate into an agreement to scare and intimidate the community members, but little did they know that it had the exact opposite effect. So the first 2-3 days, they started entering the private Armenian Patriarchate's parking, which is, to understand it fully, so the Goveru Bardez plot is now separated into a few parts. So what is included in the deal today is the Goveru Bardez main parking, the 5 homes of Armenian families, the private Armenian Patriarchate's parking, the Armenian Patriarchate's garden, and the seminary hall. Back in April of 2023, this private company possessed the main Goveru Bardez parking area, whereas all the other areas remained under the control and the possession of the Armenian Patriarchate of Jerusalem. So as soon as they received the letter, they started demolishing the wall that separated the private parking area and the main parking area. As soon as the community members heard and the Patriarchate heard, we all rushed to the scene together with the seminarians, together with the priests, and we repeatedly stopped them from demolishing the wall. The Patriarchate even parked their cars in front of the wall, and we even put a Night's Guard, a community watch group to survey the area at all times and to be sure that no other incursions and encroachments occur on the property. On November the 5th, Sunday, which was the biggest incident since the signing of this deal, to be honest, the private company, George Warwar, with his partner Danny Rothman, arrived on the scene with armed settlers and attack dogs. So this was the tip of the iceberg, I think, for everyone. That is when they were confronted and faced with 200 community members almost, a dozen priests, and the Armenian Patriarch Nurhan Manukyan himself also arrived at the scene. And we were, together with the mediation of the police, we were able to remove those settlers and remove the private company.
Were there any injuries?
No injuries were recorded. Everyone was safe, thankfully. That is because we took all the precautions necessary and we were very peaceful and calm as usual. The Armenian community has always been peaceful and calm, and our protests have always been peaceful, and we confronted these armed thugs peacefully.
Okay, well, thankfully, that's the case. We are recording this on November 9th, and I heard that today in Jerusalem, the settlers came back.
No, so basically, as Setrag mentioned, since the 26th of October, the company is trying to demolish the wall separating the parking lot of the community with the parking lot of the Patriarchate. But today, the settlers didn't arrive to the Goveru Bardez, only the bulldozer of Xana capital arrived there and tried to demolish the wall. But thanks God, the community members that were present there in the Goveru Bardes and the seminarians, we succeeded to stop them once again from demolishing the wall. So by showing confrontation, by showing opposition to the deal, every day we succeed to go another step forward.
Okay, so there were some initial reports that nobody had seen the Patriarch's letter to Xana Gardens, but then many media outlets printed it, and we're going to include a link in our show notes as well. The letter is dated November 1, 2023. As far as I can tell, this letter was an important step in the life of the lease, but it's going to be up to the Israeli courts to decide the legality of it. Have you consulted your lawyers, and what is the take on the validity of this lease agreement and also its cancellation?
It is important to mention that the cancellation letter sent by the Patriarchate is one-sided. And in the past few months, the community organized demonstrations against this lease, and Jordan and Palestine decided to freeze the recognition of Patriarch Manukyan, and pressure on the Patriarchate forced them to take this important step in order to cancel the deal. But as you mentioned, it's only one-sided cancellation, and in order to cancel the deal officially, we have to go to court. We as a community, we have our legal team, we have the local legal team, and we have the Armenian legal team, Karni Kirkonian, Garo Hazarian, Lease Dajani, Arman Tatoyan, and Dani Nazarian, who are working with us pro bono. And we are in touch with them on a daily basis, and we are working on legal proceedings on behalf of the community. For example, 10 days ago, we initiated a case in the Israeli court against the company. Okay. So this is the first step as a community against the company.
But we are also, it's worth mentioning that the legal team of the community and the legal team of the Patriarchate are negotiating. They are in negotiations to cooperate fully and to have full transparency on this issue so that the community is not kept in the dark once more, as it has been the case for the past, at least for the past 100 years, where the community has no say whatsoever in the decision-making process of the Patriarchate, specifically when it comes to land deals and major decisions. So we are working right now with the Patriarch lawyers.
What's the outlook and the timeline of these legal procedures?
So usually these legal procedures take a lot of time. Mm-hmm. If we take the Greek example, for example, if we take the Greeks who had a problem with their properties on Jaffa Gate, which you may have heard of, the Imperial and Petra hotels, who again fell into the hands of the settlers, it took about 15 years of legal proceedings. So the first steps right now that the Patriarchate, when they sent the letter, they wanted to bring the other party to the negotiations table and negotiate some sort of cancellation with them. Because
is that because they were refusing to negotiate the cancellation, do you think?
Well, there were some negotiations that happened, but perhaps they didn't take the Patriarchate very seriously, as there was no actual acts on the ground. Mm-hmm. So once it became serious, that's when they started panicking, I'm assuming, and started using all these intimidation tactics. But the reason to go to negotiations is to kind of fast track it and to save us costs, be it legal costs, to save us time and energy and so on. So they will try and figure out a way to cancel this deal mutually. And if that does not happen, they will be able to go, they can go already to court, but they will go to court if they do not reach an agreement on the cancellation.
So is it possible that Goveru Bardes is going to be in this legal limbo for years, possibly?
Yes, that's definitely possible, which is why that the possession of the terrain is a very important part of it. You know, when you go to legal proceedings, the facts on the ground need to remain the same.
Absolutely.
So whoever possesses the areas of the lands in question, it stays that way, which is actually one of the major arguments we were having with the police. You know, when the police came and they were demolishing the bulldozers, we were constantly telling them, because they were saying this is a commercial disagreement of some sort, you need to go to court. Mm-hmm. But we repeatedly told the police, yes, we need to go to court, but the facts on the ground need to remain the same. Your job is to keep the facts on the ground If
The
they have
same.
possessed that area, they need to remain in that area. And if the Patriarchate is controlling and possessing this part of the land, this area of the land, this means that the Patriarchate has the right to possess it until one of the parties goes to court and gets either a court order or eventually a court verdict if this goes on for a while in the courts. So that is why it was very surprising for us, the passive, stance of the police, which is very active usually, especially the Israeli police in Jerusalem.
Yeah, that was actually a question that I had, if they've been helpful. So it sounds like you actually had to press them quite a bit, but at the end, they acted to keep things the same.
Reluctantly.
Reluctantly.
Actually, on Sunday the 5th, when the armed settlers came, they were again saying both sides should leave the area. But that was not logical, because that area in question where they had encroached themselves was under the operation and the control of the Armenian Patriarchy. So the only side that had to leave were the armed settlers, specifically because they were armed and in front of women, children, the elderly, and unarmed peaceful protesters.
Now, the settler issue is something that is confusing me a little bit. Can you help explain? As far as I understand, the leasing agreement was something that was going to allow some kind of a hotel to be established on the leased lands for, I'm not even sure, between 49 and 99 years. What do settlers have anything to do with this? Why were settlers showing up to take over the land?
So the lease agreement, which was signed by the Patriarchate with Xana Capital, is for 98 years, is 49, with another option of 49, and only the company can choose to extend for another 49 years, not even the Patriarchate. And the arrival of the settlers, from the information that we have, these people received payment from the company to come and stand with Danny Rothman and George Warwar. So their arrival today, it's like a usual thing to see settlers taking over lands. I mean, the entire international community and the international media is busy with the war in Gaza. And many settlers took over lands in the West Bank. So it looks like it's something very, very obvious or very usual for them to take over lands also in Jerusalem, especially in the Armenian quarter, where they know that we have a conflict, the community, the Patriarchate, and the company over the Goveru Bardes. So Danny Rothman used the situation in Gaza and brought with him the armed settlers, so the community will not be able to do something. But the opposite thing happened when 200 people were standing there in front of the armed settlers and Danny Rothman protecting the Goveru Bardes, protecting the other parts of the Goveru Bardes. So we showed unity, and this was, I think, in my opinion, this is their last resort or weapon against us bringing armed settlers.
So this was a way for them to change the facts on the ground?
Yes, this was another way for them to change the facts on the ground. They started with the bulldozer. No, first, they started by not allowing people to park their cars in the Goveru Bardes. A few months ago, for example, Setrag and me, we can enter the Goveru Bardes, we can enter our cars there because we are organizing the demonstrations and we are leading the movement. So they started with banning people from entering the Goveru Bardes. Then they brought the bulldozers, and then they brought the armed settlers. So they are trying all the ways in order to destroy the moral and destroy the struggle that the community is doing or fighting for.
Okay, so how are you guys proceeding from here? What are the most important things to keep in mind?
In any interview, both of us, we continue to call upon the Patriarchate, as Setrag mentioned, that in order to win this struggle, you can't work alone. Yes, both of us, community and Patriarchate, were separated and we're working on this struggle separately. But now, when the danger is under the window of the Patriarch himself and under the window of the seminarians, this is the time where community and Patriarchate should join forces and cooperate together. And in order to cooperate together, we have to work in a transparent way. That's where the Patriarchate should fully cooperate with the legal team of the community and be transparent with them, because we cannot win this struggle when both sides are not united and both sides are not joining forces.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, Hagop, this is not only for the Armenian community in Jerusalem. This has woken up and is of great interest to the entire worldwide Armenian community. So we are all watching with great anxiety and want you to succeed in this.
Yeah, we'd like to thank actually all the Armenian organizations, all the Armenian institutions that reached out to us, mainly because of the huge PR campaign that we put in place. Actually, even our fellow Jerusalemite Armenians say wherever we go in the world, when Armenians see us and they know we're from Jerusalem, the first thing that comes to mind is the Goveru Bardes.
Absolutely.
So what we need to do right now is to build on that. Now that the awareness is there, now that everyone is aware of the situation, we need to use our diaspora. We need to use our forces. We need everyone. When it comes to Armenia, it's understandable that there are political oppositions, that different ideologies and so on. In this case, there is no place for political differences.
Right.
We're on the same page. And as we proved after 6 months of struggle, at the end of the day, even the Patriarchate and the community, we have the same interests. We are on the same page as well. So we should put everything aside for now. We are talking about 1,500-year-old diaspora, at least, which is one of the oldest, if not the oldest diaspora, Armenian diaspora in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about a place that is of major geopolitical interest and geopolitical importance and strategic importance. This has been mentioned many times. One of the ultimate reasons the Camp David negotiations between the Palestinians and the Israelis failed was the issue of the Armenian Quarter. So we hold a lot of cards in our hands. We need to be able to use them. We need to know the power we have and to use that power to serve the best interests of the Armenian people, of the Armenian nation, of the Armenian community in Jerusalem, and of course of the Armenian Patriarchate as an institution.
More power to you guys and to the organization you've created, Save the AARQ. I will make sure to put the links in our show notes so that more people can discover about it. And I guess we can leave it there for today. Let's keep this channel open so that anytime that there are issues, we can immediately get your word out. Okay?
Perfect. We'll be happy to communicate with you whenever there's a need.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone, and stay safe.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Okay, that was our show. We hope you found it informative. Please find us on social media and follow us, like us, subscribe to us, and so on. You can find our links on our profile pages. Thanks, and talk to you soon.